Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm Jamie Dawn, your evolutionary, revolutionary astrologer, bringing you your celestial wisdom for the week of July 21st through the 29th of 2024. But first, let me just say, I am sympathizing, empathizing with all of you right now. This last week has been a doozy. I'm recording this on the full moon day. So here we are at the full moon, which I talked about in my last video. And it's the second Capricorn full moon. And I know that many of us are exhausted, feeling a little, hungover energetically, and just needing to escape and take a break. This is a great weekend for doing just that. I would say that for me, I have a Cap rising. So this full moon hits me again in my first house, first and seventh. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling a need to reorganize myself, kind of even be a little quiet for just a little bit. I am going to do a ceremony this evening that is going to invite a releasing of any stuck energy, anything that doesn't serve me any longer, that maybe a pattern that has held me back. And I'll talk about that a little bit as we move forward. We also had that Mars Uranus conjunction, or as I like to say, canoodling, that happened on Monday. And I can't say for me personally that there was anything that just hit me, if you will, other than my beloved and some other family members, friends were going through a lot. And so I internalized that. My empathy was a little bit on overload. I also noticed that my Mars energy and wanting to fight and protect those that I care about to ease their pain, maybe even take their pain away, that kicked in. This particular full moon with Capricorn being so close to Pluto, I mean, we're talking a 1 degree separation. It is asking us to really look at our shadow work as well, and what are our defaults and what are our shadows. And one of mine can be avoidance, where, it's like, okay, I'm don't want to deal with this, so I'm just going to ignore it and hope that it goes away. And I've been working with that pattern for many, many years. And luckily, I do have the skills to be able to navigate it, but to really integrate it and face it. And that's what we're being asked to do with our shadow. And if you haven't done shadow work, or maybe you've dabbled in it a little bit, I promise you it's not going to go away. So the invitation is to gain the skills, get a professional, get somebody who can help you walk through that shadow. One of the biggest themes for me personally with my beloveds was grief. A lot of shadow comes out of grief. Grief is painful, painful, painful. Sadness and anger and all of those emotions that come up with it, and that feeling of being out of control. And that's another shadow of mine, is needing to have control. If I have control, haha, then I feel secure. And if I feel insecure, what happens? I might try and manipulate, or I might pout, or I might go into panic mode, whatever gets triggered for us when we are feeling those fears and insecurities. So I'm just setting all that up to say, I get it. And this next week, there should be a little bit more energy, relief. It's a roller coaster ride, you guys. I can't say that every day is a holiday, even though that is a phrase that my father would use very often. But we can't take a holiday from life. It's happening. And I will say it was very appropriate this week. I used the Chariot card. That was one that was pulled from my Celtic deck, which I will pull another card in just a minute for us. But the Chariot invited us to keep a foot in both worlds, both that dark and light, that we are the charioteer commanding how we live, how we navigate this crazy thing called duality in this human experience. This coming week, especially moving into tomorrow night and Sunday, we have Mars moving into the sign of Gemini, and it's going to be there for a few weeks. And if you remember correctly, back a year and a half ago, Mars was in Gemini retrograde. It was there for 7 months. We don't have that this time. Mars is not exactly debilitated in Gemini, but it's also not happiest. It doesn't have a lot of oomph. What it can do, though, and I'll get into that, is it can really stimulate our curiosity and our mind, and it can get really sharp with the way we process information, which will be helpful as we go through a Mercury retrograde in August. That starts August 5th, and it will go until the 29th of August. But we have shadows, right? And that shadow period starts this coming week, and then we'll finish the first week or so of September. So Then we also have Mercury entering Virgo this week, where it's its home sign. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's great, except I shouldn't say except. It's almost like setting you up for a Mercury retrograde and going, oh God, no, not another Mercury retrograde. I will say including, this is the integration, including squares that are going to be happening with Mars in Gemini. And we know that squares usually mean tension. I'll talk about that as we go through the process. But for now, let's work with what card for this week are we going to have? And what I'm getting, Queen of Wands. Okay, make sure you can see that. The Queen of Wands reminds us that we are courageous, we can be determined and very upbeat, that we can see things through a creative vision, if you will, and that even in the middle of adversity and challenge, we have the courage to be able to face it. And the Queen of Wands is asking us to be bold in our actions. Remember, I mentioned this is an action week that we had leading up to the full moon. Well, now we're going to see some of the results of our actions, and it's going to invite us to continue to be courageous with the different conversations and actions that we have. Also, the Queen of Wands says that it's a very social aspect, a very social card, meaning that we can live a very busy life, connecting with others. We can draw our energy and strength off of connecting with others. We'll want to have those who really energize us around us this week. If we are working with letting go of a relationship because it's been draining us, this is good. Surround yourself with people who energize you, who help bring out the best in you. And that this is also a great week for those of you who might be looking for new job or new relationship. You can create a really powerful first impression with this kind of energy. So really tune in, use your intuition, call upon the Queen of Wands energy, just like you would if you're working with your guides and your angels. Consider this to be like a guide, and call upon the Queen of Wands to help you make a good first impression. And really, that first impression, too, is being in the things, embodying the things that bring you the most joy, the most passion, and being able to just find that enthusiasm around it. Because one thing I have found, and maybe you have too, is that when you're passionate about something, people resonate. And if they don't, you don't need those people in your life, but you're going to start to attract, like the whole analogy of a moth to a flame. You have lots of moths to that flame of passion. And that's what we want to think about too, with the Queen of Wands being that fire energy as well. And also the Queen of Wands encourages us, and this is another wonderful emphasis about the Queen of Wands, to get to know our shadow self. And sometimes that darker, lesser side, if you will, of us that we really are, doesn't mean that we have to sit there and nitpick ourselves, which could happen when Mercury enters Virgo, but that we are able to maybe meet that side of us that we've had hidden, that now we can bring some light to it. And that it's important for us to express ourselves openly and honestly and authentically. That's something we've been working with for a long time anyways, is leading a more authentic life. One other thing I want to point out on a global and country for the US level, we had a cyber malfunction that happened this morning, actually. And I'm only chuckling in the sense of, I will say I told you so kind of sense, because I'm going to bring it just reminds me to bring that awareness back into the collective, that the energy that we're in now with the age of progress, the age of machines, the age of science and technology, Pluto in Aquarius, information has to be protected. Information is going to have snafus. There's going to be things that are going to be, quote unquote, attacked. Remember, Pluto's a planet of transformation, and what it does is it brings up all the flaws, all the kinks, the things that aren't working to the surface, and that way we can evolve and transform it. And so having a IT failure that affected airlines and first responders and things like that, well, I wasn't surprised when it happened. It was only a matter of time. The reminder, too, is if you are someone who hasn't protected your identity, your credit, that sort of thing, that's something else to be paying attention to, because it certainly is a big thing. Watch for frauds as well. There's a lot of people who are bamboozling, if you will, selling that snake oil and trying to charm you out of your money. So do pay attention to that as well. Watch out for false hope, okay? Or if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Now, let's talk about Mars and Gemini. As I mentioned, it's going to activate and drive our curiosity and our desire to learn. Remember, Mars is our planet of motivation. It's our planet of oomph, it gets us going. It gives us that drive and that passion. And it's our we'll call it our sexual energy, because it's something we want to assert, it can also be aggressive. And with Mars and Gemini, we may be looking to connect with people, right? Now you have introverts, or you have some people who are like, I just need to kind of step back and recharge. Well, Mars and Gemini, if it's overtaking you, that could be frustrating, because you're just wanting to connect and nobody's there. So it can create that frustration of loneliness, and then you'll just connect with anybody and everything, and maybe try and force your opinion or your ideas onto other people. That's something else that Mars and Gemini could activate for us. Keep in mind, it's going to make a trine to Pluto in Aquarius as it's retrograding back into Capricorn. And when Mars is trining Pluto here in these air signs, then we may find that we get very forceful with what we want, how we share it. If people aren't doing what we ask them to, we're going to start telling them what to do, not exactly creating friendships there. Now, the positive side is we can create and strengthen friendships, and we can find all kinds of ways to sell and market ourselves and our ideas and all those kinds of things. Mars and Gemini also isn't exactly the most committal energy as well. So when we're looking at it from a relationship standpoint, we may decide it's great for bringing some lightheartedness and curiosity, say in the bedroom, or if you're looking to date, getting online and just having some fun connecting with people online. But don't necessarily look for strong commitment while Mars is in Gemini. See this as more of like, it's going to be what it's going to be. Let's just have fun with it, not think too far ahead, One other thing to keep in mind is that you may be attracted more to that meeting of the minds, a good debate, or that there's a good, I'll say, banter that can often happen. That's a big turn on with Mars and Gemini. But agitated minds, this is another shadow to work with. We can create some stories. And when we create those stories, it may incite passion, it can incite anger, it could incite words that then become weapons. Mars is associated with weaponry, right? With sharp objects. And our words can become sharp objects if we're not careful. I will also say Mars and Gemini can give, especially if you've been working on a writing project or a speaking engagement or something like that, that it can help push that out into the collective, into your audience, and give you opportunities to really come off really well in presentations, things like that. Now, the other thing that happens on Monday is the sun is moving into Leo. Sun is at home in Leo. It rules the sign of Leo. And the sun is what energizes us. It's what gives us our sense of purpose and vitality. It is the thing that the sun is our luminary that says, I am optimistic and I am so excited about what's going to happen next. And in the sign of Leo, its home sign, it gives us a chance to have even more courage to do and say things we might not normally do. It also gives us a boost in our confidence, because Leo loves to be on stage. It wants to be seen. And so it's a reminder that as we are stepping onto the scene and wanting to be seen, that we're ruling with our heart, not necessarily our head. So the other thing about the sun is related to the ego. The shadow side of sun in Leo is our egos could get overinflated. There could be arrogance involved. So we want to watch for that, because that could be a turnoff for a lot of people. However, it can boost our confidence in who we are and why we do what we do and all of that. And also the sun in Leo is very generous to a fault, and it wants to play and have fun with people who are considered to be part of the pride, because Leo is the lion. And so we're looking at those who we care about, and we're going to be very generous with them. Children especially are endeared, or the youth during this time. We may thrive on recognition and praise. So if you feel like you've been sort of in the background, or you don't know how you're doing, say at work, or if you're doing any good in a relationship, this is a great time to get those words of affirmation or some way of getting recognition as well. If you're not getting it and you need it, ask for it. That's going to be the gift of the sun in Leo, is that it gives you the courage and the confidence to ask for what you need. Now, I mentioned Mercury moving into the sign of Virgo, and it will go retrograde August 5th through the 29th, but it moves into its home sign of Virgo on the 26th. So this is a time with Mercury at home in Virgo, so it rules Virgo and Gemini, that our minds get to be really sharp and direct. And so we have the opportunity to be able to take information, and in the sign of Virgo, we're going to organize it. We're going to strip away anything that doesn't make sense or it doesn't work for us or whatnot. And so it can take all this information in and say, this is good, this isn't good, or this works, this doesn't work. So it's a good time to get organized, to produce content. No wonder that much of this energy happens right when you're getting ready to go back to school, because you're gathering, all the school supplies and saying, what do I need for this year? I'm now moving from, third grade to fourth grade. I don't need the same reading material that I did then, blah, 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 things like that. And so while Mercury moves through Virgo, our power to analyze information becomes really strong. And that's good, except if we move into analysis paralysis or we get overly critical, because that is something too, where we start overthinking it. But this energy can help us communicate our thoughts in a really clear and concise way. So again, even though Mercury is going to retrograde, and it does tend to, I'll say, get our thoughts a little foggy or murky, there is the ability here to be able to communicate clearly, especially if we stay organized with how we're communicating, which is important. I mentioned this in an email not too long ago. Important to learn the skill of communication. If you don't have it, gather it, Productivity is also a big benefit of Mercury and Virgo. So if you feel a little stagnant, or you've been on vacation and you've taken a step back and you're like, okay, now I got to get organized again, this is a really fun transit for that, and that you can make real progress with your opportunities. So instead of getting stuck in some sort of dead end trap or idea that just kind of, death by committee, or as my friends and family will say, you gum it to death, that this is a time where you can just talk about it and make action plans, put it into place. It's really a great time for forward movement. And I'll talk more about Mercury retrograde in my next video, but keep in mind, Mercury retrograde is a time that we can redo, we can revisit, we can, rejuvenate, whatever. It's a great time for wrapping things up. So use this week to analyze and to really shape up, make a list. Virgos love their list. Make a list of all the things that, like an inventory, what is working, what's not. Also, what do I do daily? What do I do weekly? What do I do monthly? What do I do yearly? Make your list and just see, does that still serve? Or if you're wanting to create, Virgo is very creative. You want to create new content, or you want to create a new craft, or something, maybe a new routine. Virgo loves routine. So maybe there's something new to create. This is a good time to really get organized on that as you start the creation process. Also, I will put another pin on the map. I do believe that even before Mercury goes retrograde, that we will most likely start to revisit some things from our past. And it's a good time during Mercury retrograde to wrap up the past. So, check off those little tasks that have just been niggling in the back of your head. Maybe you've been procrastinating and putting them off. Now's the time just to say, done, got it. Remember, we've got the Queen of Wands this week, giving us the courage to help us do that, and that we blend in that shadow. If you're a procrastinator, blend that in. Maybe that procrastination serves so that you could take a break and not get burnt out, but now it's time to take action. And I will say this, for relationships, we will most likely be having some conversation around routines, practical things, daily things that we need in our relationships in order to feel as though we're making progress. And I think that's something else that we'll be looking at as well. Like, how is this relationship progressing? Is it still in alignment with what has served me? And I will also give you that I believe this is a time where we're not necessarily asking for more, we're asking to go deeper. Okay. So really think about that. How can I go deeper in my relationships, not just romantically, but with my friendships, with my professional relationships, my family, my relationship with all things, or how can I go deeper with my health routine, or, my relationship to my health, or relationship to money, whatever it might be. All right, you guys. I guess that's it for now. A reminder, I will be live on Monday on 12 Radio. So come find me at 12radio.com at the Jamie Dawn Show. That's at 11 a.m. Pacific. And what else? I guess that's about it for now. I didn't make notes. I'm just kind of freewheeling on this one. But thank you so much for allowing me to offer these with you. And please like, subscribe, share. If you subscribe and you share, then it helps to boost the content, and it helps to keep me going. I'll use Mars and Gemini. I wouldn't mind some words of affirmation there. And if not, that's okay too. I do these even if it just touches the life of one person. All right, you guys, come find me at 12listen and jamiedawn.com. I look forward to connecting with you. Have a great week, everyone, and happy full moon again in Capricorn. Take care.